Equations of motion using graphical method. Newton studied motion of an object and gave a set of 3 equations of motion. So Newton was a scientist who studied motion of objects and he gave 3 equations which we will study now. These relate the displacement, velocity, acceleration and time of an object moving along a straight line. So these equations are basically the different types of association of displacement, velocity, acceleration and time of object moving along a straight line. Suppose an object is in motion along a straight line with initial velocity u. So initial velocity is taken as u. It attains final velocity v. Final velocity is v in time t due to acceleration a. Its displacement is s. The 3 equations of motion can be written as v is equal to u plus at. This is the relationship between velocity and time. So v and u are velocity, acceleration is a and t is time. So this equation is the relation between velocity and time. S is equal to ut plus half at square. This is the relation between displacement and time. So here S is the displacement and t is the time. So that's why this relation is between displacement and time. V square is equal to u square plus 2as. This is the relation between displacement and velocity. Since s is the displacement and v is the velocity, this equation tells us the relation between velocity and displacement. So now we will see how each of these equations were derived. Let us try to obtain these equations by the graphical method. Equation describing the relation between velocity and time. Do you remember what the equation was that showed the relation between velocity and time? It was the first equation. V is equal to u plus at. So now we will see the derivation of this equation. The figure shows the change in velocity with time of a uniformly accelerated object. So as we had seen earlier, y-axis had the velocity and x-axis has the time. And for a uniformly accelerated object, the graph was a straight line that was not parallel to the x-axis. So that's why it is this line over here, dB. So this d could be at 0 or it could have an initial velocity of a number. So therefore we will take that as u. The initial velocity of the object is u, that is also equal to od. The final velocity of the object is v, that is also equal to oc. So the final velocity, that is this point, is equal to v, and that v is equal to oc. The time t is oe. So the time taken for the object to reach this final velocity would be this time, and that would be equal to oe on the x-axis. Acceleration is equal to change in velocity upon time. So I hope you remember this formula. This was equal to final velocity minus initial velocity upon time t. So final velocity minus initial velocity upon time. Final velocity v on this line would be OC, that is from O to C, and initial velocity u would be OD. So when you substitute this, you would get OC minus OD upon time t. But if you see carefully, from OC, if we remove this part, that is OD, we would get CD. So therefore it would be CD upon time. And when you take time on the left hand side, we would get CD is equal to AT. Draw a line parallel to y-axis passing through B. So when you draw a line parallel to y-axis passing through B, you would get this line. This line crosses x-axis at point E. And when you draw a line parallel to x-axis passing through D, you would get this line, and this line intersects with this line BE at point A. So if we see carefully, BE would be equal to BA plus AE. But BA is also equal to CD and AE is also equal to DO because these lines are parallel. So the distance between them would be the same. So when you use this and substitute it here, we would get V, which was the BE line, equal to CD plus OD. And as we had got earlier, CD was equal to 80 and OD is equal to U. So when you rearrange it, you would get V is equal to U plus 80. And this is the first equation of motion. Now let's see the equation describing the relation between displacement and time. And if you remember, this was the second equation, that is S is equal to ut plus half at square, where S was the displacement and t was the time. Let us suppose that an object in uniform acceleration a and it has covered the distance s within time t. From the graph, the distance covered by the object during time t is given by the area of quadrangle DOEB. So let's see how to derive this equation from this graph. If you remembered earlier, if you have to find the distance travelled by an object, you can also find it by taking the area under the curve. So in this case, it would be quadrangle DOEB. So if we find the area of this quadrangle, it would be equal to the distance travelled by the object in uniform acceleration. And how would we find the area of this quadrangle? We can find it using first getting the area of this rectangle, that is DOEA, and adding it to this right angle triangle, that is triangle DAB. So if you remember, to calculate the area of a rectangle, you have to do length into breadth. So it would be OE or DA, which is the length, into DO or AE, which is the breadth. And how would you find the area of a right angle triangle? We would get it by half into multiplying the sides that are making the right angled. So in this graph, it would be half into DA into AB. So they have used this and substituted the values to get this equation. That is, S is equal to AE into OE, which was the area of the rectangle, plus half into AB into DA, and this was the area of the triangle. But AE was equal to OD, which was equal to the value of U, and we will substitute it. AE was equal to U. OE is equal to time t. So when we substitute OE as time t, and this would be half into AB into DA. Now AB would be equal to CD, and if we see the derivation we did earlier, we got CD is equal to AT. So we will substitute that as well, where AB is equal to AT. And your DA would be equal to OE, which would equal to time t. So we will substitute DA as time t. And when you rearrange this and substitute the values, you would get S is equal to U into T plus half into AT into T. But AT into T would be equal to AT square. So finally we would get Newton's second equation of motion, which is S is equal to UT plus half AT square. So now we will see the derivation of the last equation, and that equation was describing the relation between displacement and velocity. And if you remember that equation, it was v square is equal to u square plus 2as. We have seen that from the graph we can determine the distance covered by the object in time t from the area of the quadrangle DOEB. But DOEB is a trapezium, so we can use the formula for its area. So if we go to the previous graph, here we had seen that in order to calculate the distance that traveled by the object, we could find the area of DOEB, which was a quadrangle. So before we had found the area by first finding the area of this rectangle and adding it to the area of this triangle. But since DOEB is a trapezium, we can use the formula for area of a trapezium. So now we can find it directly, and if you remember, the area of a trapezium is half into sum of the lengths of the parallel sides into the distance between the parallel sides. So over here the parallel sides would be OD and BE, and the distance between the parallel sides would be OE. So here OD would also be U. So if an OE would be time T. So if we substitute this, we would get half into OD plus BE into OE. So when you substitute it finally, you get S is equal to half into U plus V into T. But acceleration is equal to final velocity minus initial velocity upon time t. So if we substitute this in this t, we would get t is equal to v minus u upon a. So therefore s is equal to half into u plus v into, now we have substituted the t, so v minus u upon a. So when you take v minus u together, it would be s is equal to v plus u, v minus u upon 2a. And as we know earlier, a plus b and a minus b is equal to a square plus b square. So using this algebraic equation, we would finally get Newton's third equation of motion, that is v square is equal to u square plus 2as. Always remember, the velocity of an accelerated object changes with time. So this was basically the definition of acceleration, which was change in velocity per unit time. So the change in velocity can be due to change in direction or magnitude of the velocity or both. So change in direction, that is, if the object changes its direction, that will have an effect on the change in velocity. Or the magnitude, that is how fast the velocity of the object is. So if the speed or velocity changes, that will also cause a change in velocity. Or both, that is if the object changes the direction as well as the magnitude of the velocity. So both these things can cause change in velocity. Uniform circular motion is our next topic. So now all this while we have been seeing the motion of an object in a straight line, but now we will study about circular motion. Let's try this. Observe the tip of a second hand of a clock. What can you say about its velocity and speed? So in a clock, you have the hour hand, the minute hand and the second hand. So they are asking about the second hand of the clock. So that second hand, every second it moves ahead and it completes one circular motion in 1 minute, that is 60 seconds. The speed of the tip is constant because speed does not depend on the direction of motion, but the direction of its displacement, and therefore its velocity is constantly changing. So since speed does not depend on the direction but velocity depends on the direction, and because the direction of the second hand is constantly changing, therefore its velocity is also constantly changing. As the tip is moving along a circular path, its motion is called uniform circular motion. It's called uniform circular motion because every second it travels equal amounts of distance. And since this motion is in circular, that's why it's called uniform circular motion. Try out and think about it. Draw a rectangular path as shown in the figure. Place the tip of your pencil on the middle of any side of the square path and trace the path. Note how many times you have to change the direction while tracing the complete path. So now if we start in the middle of a side and go, we change the direction 1, 2, 3 and 4 times to complete this square. So the number of times you have to change direction would be equal to the sides of the figure. If you increase the number of sides of the polygon and make it infinite, how many times will you have to change the direction? What will be the shape of the path? So they are telling now this is 4 times and then this would be 5 times, 6 times, etc. So if the number of times is infinite, so how many times you'll have to change the direction? That will be infinite times. And what will be the shape of the path? So if you think carefully, if you have to change the direction infinite times, you will get a circle. When an object is moving with a constant speed along a circular path, the change in velocity is only due to the change in direction. Hence, it is accelerated motion. So, since acceleration depends on change in velocity and velocity depends on the direction, so even though there is a constant speed, but since the direction is changing in a circular path, therefore velocity is also changing, and that is why it is an accelerated motion. When an object moves with a constant speed along a circular path, the motion is called uniform circular motion. Examples of such motion are the motion of a stone in a sling or that of any point on a bicycle wheel when they are in uniform motion. So if you tie a stone to a sling, that is like a thread, and you move it in a circular manner, then the motion of the stone at the tip of the string would be uniform circular motion. And also, if you see the bicycle wheel, any one point on the wheel, as it keeps moving, it will perform uniform circular motion. If an object moving along a circular path of radius r takes time t to come back to its starting position, its speed can be determined using the formula given below. So originally, what was the formula for speed? It was speed is equal to distance upon time. But here the distance travelled would be equal to the circumference of a circle because the object is moving in a circular path. Therefore, you will calculate the distance using the circumference of the circle. And what is circumference of a circle? It is equal to 2 pi r, where r is the radius of a circle. The next topic is determining the direction of velocity in uniform circular motion. Let's try this. Take a circular disc. A disc is a round object like a plate, and put a 5 rupee coin at a point along its edge, that is at the end of the plate put a 5 rupee coin. Make it move around its axis. Axis is a perpendicular line passing through the center by putting a pin through it. So they've put a pin at the axis. When the disc is moved at higher speed, the coin will be thrown off as shown in the figure. So the coin was placed at the edge, and when you kept moving it round and round, the coin was thrown off, like how we can see here. Note the direction in which it is thrown off. Repeat the action by placing the coin at different points along the edge of the circle and observe the direction in which the coin is thrown off. So you have to repeat this experiment again and again by placing the coin at different locations around the edge. And again you have to turn it and watch where the coin is thrown off. The coin will be thrown off in the direction of a tangent. Do you remember what a tangent is? A tangent is any line that passes through the edge of the circle. It only passes one point at the edge, and it is a straight line which is perpendicular to the radius of the circle. So this would be the radius, and tangent is always perpendicular to the radius. Thus, the direction in which it gets thrown off depends on its position at the moment of getting thrown off. It means that as the coin moves along a circular path, the direction of its motion is changing at every point. So over here that we seen, wherever you place the coin and you start spinning it, the moment it gets thrown off, it will make a tangent to the radius. and that the coin's motion keeps changing every point because the coin is rotating. So because of that, its motion keeps on changing. So now let's go through some solved examples. Example 1. An athlete is running on a circular track. He runs a distance of 400 meters in 25 seconds before returning to his original position. What is his average speed and velocity? So the circumference of this circular track would be 400 meters. Because after he traveled this 400 meters, he returned to his original position, and he did this in 25 seconds. So what would be the average speed and velocity? So as we had seen earlier, speed was equal to circumference upon time. So here the average speed will be the total distance covered upon the total time taken, which was 400 upon 25, which is equal to 16 meter per second. But the average velocity we are going to calculate using displacement. And since he returned to his original position, the displacement would be 0. And if in the numerator you have a 0, your answer would be 0. Let's see the second example. An airplane taxis on the runway for 30 seconds. Taxis is when the airplane is just moving on the runway without actually flying. An airplane taxis on the runway for 30 seconds with an acceleration of 3.2 meter per second. So here they have given us the acceleration, that is 3.2 meter per second square before taking off. How much distance would it have covered on the runway? So here they have given us acceleration and time, and they are asking us the displacement. So we have to see which Newton's law of motion was telling us the relation between displacement and time. And that was the second law of motion. That is, S is equal to ut plus half at square. And this formula has acceleration in it. So we just have to substitute whatever is given to us, and we get the answer of 1440 meters. So this airplane traveled 1440 meters on the runway for 30 seconds with acceleration of 3.2 meter per second square. Let's see the third example. A kangaroo can jump 2.5 meter vertically. What must be the initial velocity of the kangaroo? So here they are asking us to find the initial velocity, that is u. So the kangaroo who was on the ground jumped vertically in the air. So at one point when you jump in the air, you come to a rest. So that point was 2.5 meters in the air. So they are asking us to find the initial velocity. The final velocity would be 0 because when you jump in the air at one point, you come to a rest. So the displacement would be 2.5 meters because that was the distance of the jump, and the acceleration would be 9.8 meter per second square. So how do we come to know the acceleration is 9.8 meter per second square? Because it is not given in the example. This is actually the acceleration provided by gravity. So when you jump in the air, there is a force that is stopping you from jumping too high. That is why the kangaroo came at rest after he jumped in the air. So that was because the acceleration of gravity was acting on it from up and pulling it towards the surface of the earth. Therefore, the acceleration was 9.8 meter per second square, and this is a standard value. We have to find the initial velocity u. So using Newton's third law, we know that v square is equal to u square plus 2as. So once you substitute this, you will get u square as 49, and when you take the square root, you will get u as 7. So notice here that acceleration, the 9.8, was given as a negative sign, and they are saying that the negative sign is used as the acceleration is in the direction opposite to that of velocity. So the velocity of the kangaroo was upwards from the surface of the earth, but the gravitational pull was pulling the kangaroo towards the surface of the earth, and since the direction was opposite, therefore we have to use the negative sign. The fourth example now. A motorboat starts from rest and moves with uniform acceleration. So it's telling us that the motorboat is starting from rest. Therefore, the initial velocity would be 0. If it attains a velocity of 15 meter per second in 5 seconds, calculate the acceleration and distance traveled in that time. So here they are telling us it attains a velocity, that is the final velocity would be 15 meter per second. In time, that is t, would be 5 seconds. And we have to find two things. We have to find the acceleration of the motorboat and also what distance did it cover in those 5 seconds. So we have the initial velocity, we have the final velocity, and we have the time. So we can find out the acceleration by using the basic acceleration formula, that is change in velocity per unit time. And change in velocity was final velocity v minus initial velocity 2 u upon time t. So 15 minus 0 upon 5 would give us 3 meter per second square. Now to find the distance, we can use Newton's second law of motion, that is telling us the relation between displacement and time. That was S is equal to ut plus half at square. We know everything in this formula. That is, we know the initial velocity, we know the time, and now we also know the acceleration. So just by simple substitution, you would get the displacement as 37.5 meters. So now we learn Newton's laws of motion. What could be the reason for the following? A static object, that is an object at rest, does not move without the application of a force. Like for example, if you keep a pen on the table, it will not move unless you push it or pick it up. The force which is sufficient to lift a book from a table is not sufficient to lift the table. So if you try to lift your book with just one hand, you will be able to lift the book. But if you try to lift a table with the same force, that is, if you try to lift the table with one hand again with the same force, you will not be able to lift the table. Fruits on a tree fall down when its branches are shaken. So when the fruits are on the tree, they are stable. But when you shake the branch, that time only they will fall. An electric fan keeps on rotating for some time even after it is switched off. So this you all must have noticed, that a fan, after you switch off also, the blades of the fan keep on rotating for some time and then slowly the speed decreases and finally it comes to a rest. If we look for reasons for the above, we realize that objects have some inertia. So what is inertia? Inertia is actually a property of matter by which it continues in its existing state of rest or uniform motion in a straight line unless that state is changed by an external force. So what does this exactly mean? That if an object is at rest, it will continue to stay at rest, or if an object is in motion, it will continue to be in motion for some time unless an external force is applied. So, if the book was kept on the table, it will remain on the table unless you put an external force, that is, unless you try to lift it or push it. Similarly, an object that is in motion, like the fan, even after you switch it off, because it is in motion, it will not suddenly stop. It will stop after some time. We have learned that inertia is related to the mass of the object. Mass is the matter, exactly how much matter is in the object. Newton's first law of motion describes this very property and is therefore also called law of inertia. So we will see what is Newton's first law and Newton's other laws of motion. All instances of inertia are examples of Newton's first law of motion. So all these examples that we seen above were all examples of Newton's first law of motion.